As a financial planner who specializes in helping people retire, I've had the opportunity to probably meet with about 1,000 people who are either retired or who are nearing retirement. And during all those conversations, I started to realize a really interesting trend. Many of the people I was meeting with were better off than they realized, or another way to say it is they were richer than they realized. And not only did I realize that people were better off, but I also noticed that there were some key signs or key indicators to indicate that someone might be in that category. And so today I'm going to share with you the 5 indicators that I've discovered of people who are richer or better off than they realize. And this realization could dramatically improve your retirement plan. First, my name's Kevin Lum. I'm a certified financial planner, and this channel is dedicated to helping 1 million people retire without worry. So this past weekend, I was reading The Economist and I stumbled on this headline. Baby boomers are loaded. Why are they so stingy? Now, before anyone gets upset at me and starts putting things in the comments, that was their words, not mine. But since many of my clients and many of the people who watch this channel fall into that category, this title caught my attention. And the article begins, baby boomers are the luckiest generation in history. And then it continues to say, not all are rich, but in aggregate, they've amassed great wealth. They say baby boomers have amassed this wealth for a number of reasons. One of the reasons is falling interest rates. Another reason is that there's just not enough homes being built, which is driving up the price of the existing housing stock, creating more equity. And then finally, you've had an incredible period for the financial markets. You've had really strong earnings and an increase in what people are willing to pay for those earnings. And so American baby boomers, who make up 20% of the country's population, own 52% of the wealth, somewhere around $76 trillion. And the big question that economists have been wrestling with, and kind of the idea behind this article, was that now that this generation is moving into retirement, what are they going to do with their money? Basically, everyone is trying to figure out how you're going to spend your money so they can capitalize on your wealth. And the conclusion is that baby boomers are not spending their wealth, but instead they're trying to preserve it and even increase it. In the mid-1990s, those between the ages of 65 and 74 spent 10% more than they took in, which decreased their wealth. But since 2015, people in this same age cohort, 65 to 74, are actually saving money, meaning they're spending less than they're taking in. A study by the Federal Reserve suggests that a majority of retirees are saving money, meaning they're actually growing their wealth, not spending it down. So on the one hand, you have the richest generation in history. But on the other hand, a recent research study came out that says the share of retirees who are very confident that they will have enough money in retirement has fallen dramatically. And so you have this really interesting dilemma. On one hand, you have the wealthiest generation ever, and you also have a generation that is most concerned about their financial future. And the question is, why? Now, the article had a number of reasons why they believe this is, but growing up with parents who lived through the Great Depression, and then living through the dot-com crash, the great financial crisis, the COVID crash, I could continue on, it begins to have an impact. And these fears are changing behaviors and causing people to spend significantly less than they could in retirement. And that brings me back to my own discovery, that many of the people I meet with are better off than they realize. And there are some key signs or key indicators that you might be in this group. And so today I want to walk through these key indicators. And then I want to talk about how this realization could dramatically impact your retirement plan. The first indicator is they are not interested in status. They're not interested in keeping up with the Joneses. Overwhelmingly, the people I talk with, they live quite simply, and they're not interested in proving their wealth to anyone. They are the epitome of the millionaire next door. And they've realized that seeking status will destroy your wealth. The second indicator I've noticed with this group of people is that they live below their means, that they spend less than they take in. And that habit has allowed a couple of things to happen. First, it's allowed them to save money, which is going to make retirement more comfortable, but it's also habited them to spend less. So when they enter retirement, it's going to be much easier to live below their means in retirement. Because if you spent 40 years learning to live below your means, it doesn't just quit when you retire. In fact, that's a challenge because many retirees, many of these people I'm meeting with could spend way more money than they're spending, but it's really hard to switch from the accumulation phase to that deaccumulation phase to realize that, you know what, it's actually okay if I splurge and I take that trip or I bought that car. that I've always dreamed of. And so the second indicator is that they live below their means. The next indicator is that their house is paid off or nearly paid off and they have no other debt. I see this over and over again. People who enter retirement with no debt are in a much better position. Now, at times people have a mortgage on their house, but they've locked in an interest rate of like 2.5% to 3%, and they have the cash if they wanted to pay it off, but they've chosen to invest that money because even with the risk-free rate of return, they'd be better off letting that money grow than paying off their home. But besides potentially a small mortgage, they have no other debt. The next indicator is that they have emergency savings and they have a nest egg outside of their retirement savings or outside of their qualified plans. And having that financial cushion for emergencies is really crucial in their financial health or their financial stability, because when something comes up, when the water heater goes out or the car stops working or they need a new roof or whatever that thing might be that's going to throw that financial plan off track, they don't have to dip into their savings. They don't have to go into debt, but they have a reserve of money. But in addition to that, they've also built up a nest egg outside of their qualified accounts. And that goes back to the idea of living below your means, because if you're living below your means, then you're able to have an emergency savings and another nest egg. The next indicator that someone is better off than they realize is that they have a sizable amount of Social Security or they have a pension. And this provides a stable source of income in retirement. Now, I know almost everyone in the United States has access to Social Security, but what I see with this group of people is that often they've tried to maximize that Social Security benefit, and they'll often delay to age 70, locking in a larger amount of inflation-protected income, which just puts them in a much better position. And often that decision could mean potentially, depending on their life expectancy, an additional $1 million in income from the government. So they're adding to their bottom line. And by pushing that benefit into the future, assuming that they have a long life expectancy, they've greatly increased the amount of money that they're going to receive over the retirement. So what does this mean for your retirement plan? And this is where I'm going to get a bit on my soapbox, because I think it's a really important message that people need to hear. It means that if the above signs resemble you, right? As I was talking, if you're going, yep, that's me. Yep, that's me. Yep, that's me. Or you're going, yes, that's my spouse. Yes, that's my spouse. It's very possible that you are richer and better off than you realize, and that you should be spending or could be spending more money. And I'm passionate about this because I often see people spending less than they could be spending in retirement. This is why I constantly talk about the retirement smile. You're going to spend more early in retirement, and it's going to dip, and then it potentially may spike at the end of your retirement, depending on your long-term care needs. But people read articles that say, I've got to take out 4% a year, and so they take out a static 4% a year. Well, they may not need 4% a year in the middle of the retirement, but in the early part of the retirement, they may be able to, depending on their situation, take out 5, 6, 7, 8% a year to take that trip to do the things that they've always dreamed of. And this bothers me because I'm afraid as people enter into retirement, they're better off than they realize, and they're putting off doing the things that they've always dreamed of or hope to do in retirement because they're afraid of running out of money, and they're going to miss the window when they're the healthiest and the most able to do the things they've always wanted to do. Now, if you are happy and you are doing everything you want to do in retirement, then you don't need to spend anymore. But my fear is that you might be putting off that splurge, taking the family to Hawaii, buying that car you've always had your eye on, or maybe even helping your kids buy their first home because you're worried you're not going to have enough money. You've worked hard to build this nest egg, but you can't take this money with you. I see over and over that people through their frugal spending habits have built up a nest egg that they will never be able to spend, but they have no vision for what they want to do with their money. And so for some of you, I want to tell you, spend that money on yourself, right? Take that trip, buy that car. Don't go over the top, within reason, but do that thing that you've always dreamed of. And if you have everything you always want, one of the things I'm really impressed with is how many people who have achieved this success are just very content. They have everything they want. And if that is you, then you need to give your money a purpose. Refrain I say a lot with clients is money is a means to an end. You have to give it a purpose, meaning you have to decide, what do you want to do with your money? Do you want to spend it on your own lifestyle? There's a group of people who just want to die with zero. If that's so, you probably should get busy spending that money now while you're young and healthy, rather than accumulating a massive nest egg that you'll never be able to spend down later in life. But for others of you, maybe your goal is to leave a legacy for your kids, to leave a significant amount of money to a future generation. If that's you, maybe you should continue your frugal ways. For others of you, maybe you want to leave your money to charity. And if that's the case, you want to plan for that now because there are some incredible tax strategies that you can use. What I see over and over is that people who are better off than they realize woke up one day and honestly, they have more money than they ever expected that they'd have. Most people I work with did not ever expect to be millionaires. They just are people who've lived simply, they've saved well, and they woke up one day and realized because of the markets and housing prices and everything else, they have a significant amount of resources, but now they need to figure out what are they going to do with that money. If you don't want to leave a large amount of money to your kids and you don't want to leave a large amount of money to charity, then spend it on experiences, spend it on things that give you your time back, maybe a gardener or a housekeeper. Take a class at a local college, improve yourself, improve your golf game, pay for golf lessons, whatever those things are that you would have never allowed yourself to pay for before, go ahead and splurge. Now, some of you, the thought of doing this, as I'm talking right now, you are having a bit of a panic attack. And if that's you, if you're unsure about your financial situation, or if you really are better off than you think you are, I would really advise you to meet with a financial planner who can create a plan that ensures you're making the most of your wealth without the fear of outliving your money. I often talk about the return on investment, but the other thing that's just as important in retirement is the return on sleep. The best portfolio, the best retirement plan is the plan that allows you to sleep at night. And if you're watching this video and you're wondering, like, I have no idea how I'm doing, I don't know where I stand, I have a video on 5 numbers you need to know if you're considering retiring.